Hey Fiskateers, it's time for Border Punch Boot Camp. When I'm done with you, not only will you have the complete 411 on border punches, but you'll learn how to use them to make a paper crafting touchdown. Get ready. Hey everybody, are you ready to border punch? First I'm going to talk about the different kinds of border punches. We have two. We have embossing border punches. They punch a design and emboss at the same time. And we've got regular border punches. The embossing ones have the pink handle and the regular ones have the blue. And we also have some older ones that have a green handle. So those are the regular punches, pink ones, embossing. And then we've also got the limited edition ones that come in fun colors. So those are the three kinds of border punches that we've got right now. Someone had asked, who was it? Let's see, Debbie had asked about proper care and maintenance. Number one thing, don't use cardstock that's too heavy because it will mess up your border punch. You might get stuck. These are tested for 65-pound weight cardstock. You know, some of the basil might be a little heavier and it's okay on the simpler designs, but if you've got something with a lot of line and intricate detail, those are going to be harder to punch on the heavier stuff. So just a little FYI on that. And I know you guys all know how to line them up, but I'll show you. Come on over here, camera person. I have my assistant cameraing here. I've got a piece of just a 4-inch square. And you guys are not going to be able to see this, but there's a little nib on the front of this section right here. That's the center point of the punch. So what you can do, if you want to have your design centered, you can just mark on the back of your paper or the front, if you're going to punch that off, the center point of the paper and line that up with that line there. Just slide it in and then you're just going to punch. Okay. For this one, it's an embossing border punch. So what I did was I punched it, and then without moving the paper, I'm going to punch it again and really get that design embossed on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down and I'm going to line it up. Hold that still, hey. Line it up with this pattern. Just like that. So when that's all lined up, I'm going to punch again, lift it up, and then give it another little push to emboss it. So you'll get a nice punch design and a nice embossed design on that. So that's the embossing border punch. Regular border punch, same thing. I'm just going to center it like so. Punch, scoot it along, match up the pattern. I can go back the other way, match up this pattern, and I'm going to show you something here like this. I'm going to make a boo-boo on purpose. Oh look, I missed a spot. Don't worry about it, it's easy to fix. Just make sure when you put this unpunched area in, you put it underneath this rectangle because that's where it's going to punch. If I have it out here somewhere, I'm not going to get that unpunched part. I want to make sure that I've got it under this rectangle somewhere. It doesn't matter where, anywhere. Just line up your punch again with the pattern, punch, and you fixed your boo-boo. Ta-da! Can you see that? Fix the boo-boo. This isn't the best paper. It's a little fibery, but it gets the job done. So that's your border punch basics. Now, if they seem to be getting a little dull, use some aluminum foil and punch it a few times. You could even use some very, very fine grit sandpaper. And if they seem to be a little sticky, punch some wax paper with them. That'll wax them up. Get them nice and smooth again. Hi. Okay, the next thing we're going to learn, it's a question that VG asked. She wanted to learn how to turn a corner. And I know we've talked about this before. It's usually something that I always show everyone when I go out to a store or I'm at a crop. But I'm going to let you guys see how we do it. The first corner is pretty easy. It's when you get to that second and third and fourth corner that it gets a little tricky. But I'm going to show you a little trick to help you make it easy. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my paper in. Okay, now scoot in here, camera person. on the border punch, on the base, there's a grid pattern. And on this square part here where the punch is, there is a line right here, and there's one right here. It's hard to see because it's not a different color, but you should be able to feel them. And that line lines up with this one grid line on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my paper in and line it up on that grid line that lines up with this line here. And I'm going to punch. Oh, and that's another trick I should tell you. If you've got one with a lot of detail that's a little harder to punch, use the punch and punch away from yourself because you'll get more leverage that way. Okay, so I've got my first punch here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the paper around this way and then this way. So I'm going to have this punch part coming off, and I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to line that right up again on that same grid line that I used. Now for threading water, we're trying to line up that hole. So what I can do is flip it over and adjust it and make sure that first hole in my punch is lined up with that first hole in my paper. Then I'm going to squeeze it, hold the paper in place, and I'm going to punch. Perfect. So there's your corner. So what you need to do is take all of your border punches, and you're going to take a nice piece of heavy cardstock, and I used a 4x4 square on this. You're going to punch one corner, just like I showed you. And you're going to use that as a template. You're going to save it. I punched a hole in mine, and I've got it on a ring. And then what I'm going to do is, let's say this is a big 12x12 piece. So here we go. I'm punching along. Punchy, punchy, punchy. I already did my first corner. So I'm punching along with my second punch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on here and figure out. I'm going to use it as a template, and I'm going to figure out where my paper needs to end so that gets lined up. And look, that happens to be perfect. So I can just go ahead and punch, put my paper in, and I'm going to make sure that that doesn't go past this last grid line right here. And I'm going to punch again. Then I can flip the corner. And like I said, flip it over, line it up, line up that one hole. Squeeze a little bit to hold paper in, and then punch. So then I've got my corner. Okay? If I've got a little bit longer piece, if it doesn't happen to work out exactly right, like that one did, what I would do is I would line up my holes again, like I had on here, and then, well, let's do this one actually. We can use this again. I can line up my holes just like this, and then using my template, I can mark right here where I need to trim my paper off. Okay? So I can put this in my trimmer. And I'm going to trim that piece off. Then I can put this in, flip it around, and I'm going to line up that first hole. Squeeze it a little bit, hold my paper in place, and punch. There you go. Ta-da! Perfect. Okay, so for threading water, I'm going to make my template, and what I did was I went ahead and made a corner, and then I also punched one side so I could see, like, if I wanted to use, trying to decide what border punch I wanted to use on a layout, I could kind of lay it on there and see how it looked. Maybe I had a particular kind of pattern paper that I was putting this on top of. So it's handy little swatch. Now, this one, and I've got it flush. So what that means is when I do the first corner, I line that up flush with that grid line and that ridge on the punch part of the piece. Now, Some of the designs don't always work from that grid line. Some of them work from a different grid line, like Sunburst. Here's one where this is what the corner would look like if I punched it flush. It's a little kind of messy. You could get away with it. It doesn't look the best. But if I do go one square past that ridge on the punch, and let me actually find the Sunburst. Where is that one here? Oh, here it is. Don't drop the camera. If I go one square past that ridge, so I'm going to go up here to this one, so that's one square past the ridge, and do my corners based on that, then I get something like this. And what I can do is I can go in with my craft knife and just maybe cut like a nice little circle there. So let's do that. So I can take this, got my fingertip craft knife, and do like a cute half circle on there. Ta-da! So then I've got a cute corner for Sunburst. So I wrote on my corner, my sample corner, Sunburst, one past. So I know that I'm going one square past the line. Okay, now here's another one. Here is Scallop Daisy. This is an embossing border punch, so this one's a little different. What I did was I went on this one. Here is my punch rectangle right here, this big rectangle that sits on top. I went one square past the end of the rectangle. So I went all the way up here. So I'll do that for you now. So I'm going to go one past the rectangle, punch, emboss it. And then to make sure that my embossing design goes the right way, I'm not going to flip it upside down and turn it. I'm going to just go to the other side. So I'm going to go this way now, and I'm going to go one square past the end of the base, not the base, the punch rectangle, excuse me. I'm going to punch, do another little push and emboss. So there's my corner for Scallop Daisy. That came out really cute, I think. Okay. So that's my template. So I've got one pass there. Then I showed you the Sunburst, threading water. Here is upper crest. I'll move this for you. That's what that looks like flush. Okay. Here is Boundary Waters. Now this one is one square past the ridge. So where's my Boundary Waters? Here we go. So Boundary Waters is one square past the ridge, not the end of the thing, past the ridge. Okay, the thing, I'm calling stuff the thing already. My suggestion is just to play with them and to see how they turn out. This is a great use for scraps. Again, this is a 4-inch square that I'm using here, but I'll show you some other ones. Here is the limited edition leafy border punch. So this is one square past the line, the ridge line on the punch, and this is lining it up with the ridge line on the punch. See the difference? So it's a matter of preference. And then this is an interesting way to do it. This one is one past going this way, and it's flush going this way. And for what I could do for that is I could take my craft knife and go in here and trim that off if I wanted to and get like a leafy corner there. That would be a cute square, actually. Cute little square. So those are some of the things you can do when you're turning the corner. Making your little template is a big thing. I just put it on a little ring. So that's it for turning the corner. My suggestion is get your punches out, get your squares, and just play and experiment and see. Like some of them I had to experiment a little bit, like on this one, this is Dozen Roses. I went a block and a half. So it just depends, but just do it, remember what you did, and write it on the back there. And here's the cupcake border. Isn't that cute?
Cupcakes
that was just
are tasty.
Okay, that was flush. And then the picket fence one. So that's one you're going to have to play with. So this is 2 past, so maybe you go in and trim that out there. Here's one that's kind of funky, that was flush. So like I said, just experiment. It's just paper, people, you know. Try it out and see how it goes. There's in stitches. That one's pretty cute. That's flush. So experiment, have fun. Next question. Okay, the next question was asked by VG. She wanted to know how to make lace with your border punches. This is fun, but we're going to have you do a swatch book again just so that you've got it handy. You only have to do it once. I'm going to show you how to make those. And if you haven't seen lace before with the border punch, that's what it looks like. Okay, you'd have like a whole really pretty long strip of this. There's one. Here's Sunburst as lace. Isn't that pretty? Gorgeous. So I started with a 2 by 4 inch strip of paper. Okay, and then what I do is I just take the paper, I put it on the punch, just kind of center it, do 1 punch. Then I take another strip of paper and I'm going to do the same thing, just get it centered, punch. Now for this I'm using white, and it's a little bit thinner cardstock than I would normally use, and we're doing that for a reason. Okay, you also want to do this on a sunny day or a semi-sunny day or during the day anyway. This might be a little harder at night unless you have a light box. I'm going to use Nature's light box. We're going to go over here to the window and I'm going to show you how to do this. Come on over, cameraman. Camera woman, excuse me. So I'm going to take 1 punch piece of paper, and I'm going to take my other one and I'm going to lay it on top. Whoops, going the other way, like this. And what I'm going to do for the diamond pattern is I want to line up that center hole. Do you see how that's lined up? And then I'm going to take a pen or a Sharpie and I'm going to trace along the edge of this piece of paper. Just like that. Okay, so you see that? I've got that lined up. That tells me how wide that piece of paper needs to be to create the lace that I showed you. So let's go on back over. So I'm just going to use my trimmer and I'm going to trim this piece of paper right on that line. And if you've got your shortcut trimmer, you can really see where you're going. So trimmed it, perfect. Then I can take this, put this in here, and what I'm going to do, since I'm lining up this middle hole, I'm going to do just like I did with the threading water border punch. I'm going to flip it upside down and stick it in there and line up those holes. You're not going to be able to see it, Haley. Grab it, flip it over, punch. And I've got my lace. Isn't it pretty? Then I can go all the way, keep going if I want, both sides. Punch my strip. I can flip this over, line this up, punch this again. So I've got a really pretty piece of lace. I'll lay it on here, just like that. Okay? But what I'm doing for the swatch is I'm just going to punch it once, okay? And then I'm going to lay it back on my trimmer here and measure how wide that piece of paper is. So that was ended up being a 1-inch piece of paper after I trimmed it off. So I'm just going to punch it once in the middle, poke a hole, punch a hole in the top, and this is my diamond punch, and it's a 1-inch strip. So that's what I need to do to make the lace. So if I wanted a wider piece of lace, it'll have some space in the middle there. I would just make a wider strip of paper. Okay, so threading water, same thing, same technique. Here's threading water. This ended up being a 7/8 of an inch piece of paper that I used. Here's the Sunburst. Now, for these two, threading water and diamond, I'm trying to line up that hole in the middle because it's got a line of symmetry that runs down through the center of it. On Sunburst, it doesn't. These two punches aren't the same here, so I need to leave a little bit of space in there so they don't get all mishmashy and ugly looking. So this piece actually ended up being 1 1/4 inches. And then Scallop Daisy is really pretty. This is 1 5/8 of an inch, and look what you come up with. It's gorgeous. And like I said, you can make it wider if you want. You're just going to have a little bit more space in the middle there. Here's Give It a Swirl. That's 1 1/4 inch. And then the other thing, I made this one, this Scallop Daisy one, I made it a little bit smaller. I was trying to line up those flowers. They're not exactly the right symmetry to get them lined up exactly, but they came out pretty cute. And look how cute that little accent is. So that was a happy accident. So that's all you need to do for your border punches. Get a 2-inch strip of paper out. Like I said, punch 1 on each strip. Line them up on the window of your light box, trace it, cut it, and then measure the strip and see how wide that was. All right, so, and then, like I said, punch a hole in the top. You've got a nice little swatch that you can keep handy, and see what the laces look like and see what size strips you need. Okay, our last question, Phyllis asked about layering. So if you've got your handy swatch from before, you can use this and kind of see what it would look like to layer 2 different border punches on top of each other. You know, just kind of take them off the rings and play around with them, see how they would look layered. One fun thing that I like to do, and this was one of the books that we made in Florida when I was down there with Ken, is I like to use different colored papers and layer the same punch. And all I did was I cut each piece of paper a 1/2 inch longer than the one on top of it. So I started off with a 6-inch piece, then I went to a 5 1/2, then I went to a 5, then I went to a 4 1/2, etc., etc. I think this is really, really pretty. I love it. There's the everywhere punch there with the butterfly. Got a little smashed. But it's really a pretty look. And the other trick is to make sure when you're doing something like this, if you're layering, you're going to start your punch in the same spot every time. So that's where the grid lines come in. It's really handy. Just remember where you started on those and make sure you start in that same spot on every piece of paper, and then they'll line up really well. Okay, so that's it. I hope you guys learned a lot about border punches. If you have any more questions, just leave them on the blog. Bye!